So I want to introduce our guest. You can find him doing breathwork classes at Othership and at TIFF events. McDonald's paid him $10,000 to make a burger. He prides himself on being authentic and amplifying people's spirits and well-being. When Andrew isn't helping people with marketing tips and growing your business, you can catch him doing coldest of the cold plunges and throwing hands because he loves Muay Thai, so don't ask for that smoke. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Daye.
Stronger, smarter, faster, healthier, better.
You like that? You like?
I love that.
That's your.
I wish that was just like on my forehead every time someone
We'll
meets
send
me.
you a clip so you can like post it. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, I gotta ask. Why did McDonald's pay you $10,000 to make a burger?
Yeah. So the super long story short of it, and if you have questions, I can go deeper. So that was my first job. Worked at McDonald's, and we had this challenge called the Secret Menu Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty much, it's like a 3-month long challenge, and any person who works at McDonald's, they're like, okay, just create a new menu item based on the existing items in store. And I was like, this is stupid. I'm not going to do this. Cause there was this one guy, he's like, yeah, I'm working with like a chef. We have like 4 recipes in the making. I'm like at the time in my life, yeah, I'm like, bro, like it's not that serious. So I didn't care. Right. And like, it was legitimately the last day, the last 30 minutes of the challenge. My manager hit me and he was like, Andrew, I know you love to cook. Why don't you just like try to do something? Like, cause like it's stupid. This guy's already doing blah blah. It was like, well, you're already gonna lose if you don't try. You might as well try and lose and lose without trying.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was actually a really good bar. Yeah. So I went to the back and I was like, well, at the time I still don't, but like I don't eat McDonald's, so I didn't even know what most of these things taste like. Yeah. So the name came first, and I was like, Chicken McChicken.
I love it.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, now I have to make sure that this burger lives up to its name. Yeah. So the same traditional McChicken, so mayo and shredded lettuce and the chicken. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, okay, the only spicy things that were there at the time was Thai sauce, jalapeno cheddar, and then I love tomato, so I just put a tomato on. Mm-hmm. That was it. And then I submitted it, and it was like 3 months of like you submit it to the website and then people can vote on your burger. Mm-hmm. So I had like 36 votes. Some burgers had like 10,000 votes, 6,000, 2,000. I'm like, okay, well, I lost. This is stupid. And I didn't pay any mind to it. Like I didn't care because I'm like, I wasn't even trying to win anyway.
Yeah, you just did it.
Yeah, but in reality, I was just like protecting my ego from losing. And like, I think it was like a December at the time, like the last month of the whole thing. I got an email from McDonald's head office and they're like, yeah, you just made it to the top 8. And I was like, wait, what's going on here? Yeah. So long story short, went there, made the burger for all the execs there. And then you have like 3 hours to perfect your burger. And I was like, I'm not making any change to my burger. I think my burger's perfect. Yeah. And then they're like, damn, that's a lot of confidence. So I was just standing there for 3 hours and then they tried all the burgers and then I ended up winning.
And they paid you $10,000?
Yeah, like I still have the $10,000 check at my house. Like it's hilarious.
What did you spend? What was the first thing you bought?
The first thing I bought actually was, at the time, was 3 stocks for Tesla. They were like, at the time, it was like $200 per share. Mm-hmm. That was the first thing that I bought.
Yeah, smart guy.
Yeah, and I have it recorded. I was so excited. I was like, it's my first stock ever buying, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that was the first thing I bought with the...
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I like that. Did you see anything on the menu that you're like, ooh, I want to try that, but I got a low-key, like, my shit's the best?
There was an interesting one. It was like, it was a fish and chips wrap. So it was like the Filet-O-Fish.
I don't know about that.
It was just interesting.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it was interesting. Like all the other ones, if I'm being really honest, I'm like, this is like so subpar. Yeah. There was like a French onion. Was it French? What's that soup? French onion soup?
French onion soup.
So there's like a French onion burger that was interesting. But like all of them,
a French onion burger.
So they had like the gravy mix for the poutine, and then they used onions, and they use that as their way to make French onion.
Oh, okay.
And then the cheese curds.
That sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, it was like that was pretty cool, but like honestly, objectively, like I don't think any of them were like Chicken McChicken level. Yeah, but yeah, there was some interesting ones.
Do you ever at home like just still make that at home? Like
no.
You let it be in the back.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I won. You know, my flowers have been received.
Yeah.
That was a part of the past that I will always keep, and that's it.
That's all right. I like that. So speaking of flowers, so I saw something that you compared yourself to being a rose in a toxic soil. Yeah. Dive into that a little bit more for me.
Yeah. So growing up, I had like an interesting upbringing. So like for the first like 5-ish years of my life, my family and I, we were raised in Malvern in Scarborough. So I have two older brothers. My dad doesn't live with us, so single mom. And I bring that piece up because like at the time, like we were living in government housing with my mom being a single mom. And you just see and hear a lot of things in life that you wouldn't want a child to see, hear, and understand at that time. And I'm sure you can understand what I'm getting at there. So we moved to Ajax, a suburb. And at the time when we just moved there, it was a lot of white people and we were like the only black people. So it was like interesting in the sense of like, but we were still living in like lower income there. So like the suburb was weird because it was like, you had like rich areas, you had middle class areas, you had low class areas, and then you had like this feeder area where like other like hoods of Toronto would just, so it was like this conglomeration of all these social classes. But it was hard because even though I would want to conform with everyone there, I only understood the people that came from the lower social classes. So because of that, I would find myself involving myself with people who I shouldn't be around. And then even in my house, there was just so much trauma from, you know, when my dad did live with us, like a lot of abuse, a lot of negativity. And like now in my household, at the time in the household, it was like, there was almost no real positivity. My mom worked 3 jobs. So I remember literally as a kid, I would stay up until 10 p.m. just to see her, to say goodnight. Like that was the interactions I would have with my mom. Right. And then the weekdays or the weekends, I would, you know, we would hang out, but like she was exhausted from working those 2 jobs.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And then my 2 older brothers, they're just, again, they're byproducts of trauma. So they're out doing whatever they're doing. So I would come home and like, it was weird. I actually had a dream about this yesterday, but like, it'd be like anytime my older brothers would call me, they were calling me because I did something wrong. So every time I would hear my name, it'd be this like panic. I'm like, oh, fuck, what did I do now? Right. And like growing up, I've never had a family dinner with my family. Like we, like us sitting down at the table, like that's never existed. Right. Like even till this day. Right. So it was like, there was just so many negative factors that existed. And then when I went to school, like all of that like rage just became an embodiment of who I was. So I was an angry kid. You know, they tried to get me into anger management. I like my desk was in the hallway because I just caused so much trouble. And like, there was just all of these things where I was just like, the environment wasn't suited for who I was. And I was just mad all the time because I just thought that was life. Right. And then that was pretty much like a key aspect of my childhood, even though like I was a very outgoing person, and there would be times where like I would try my hardest to be outside of the house for obvious reasons. And like, sure, that would be fun. But then it's like, I'm always back at the house. Right. So it's like, as much as I try to escape from it, like that's my house. There, right. So that's where it's like the rose and toxic soil, because there were so many times in that where I knew I had this like hunch that I actually don't want to be like anyone I'm surrounded by right now. Like I'm firm in that, but I didn't have any role models. So it wasn't like, oh, well, I need to do X, Y, and Z to get to A, B, C. It was more like, this is what I shouldn't do, because if I do, that's where I'll become. But that was more of an idea until like I graduated high school, and I was like, okay, now I actually need to like take these actions, because like I'm seeing people around me dying in jail, getting stabbed, like not in great situations. So like I actually need to make a change, or else I could be one of those stats, you know? So the long-winded, again, that's the rose and toxic souls. Like there was just so much in my environment that wasn't in favor of who I was. And I say rose because it's like I understood my roots, and there was something inside of me that was like, I'm not getting the proper nutrients to grow into what I should be. Hence the idea of the rose and the toxic soil.
So so I was raised by a single mom also, and it's interesting when I talk to other people about it. But do you, like, when you were younger, when your mom was working all the time doing these 2-3 jobs, did you just think, oh, your mom's just working, or did you know that she was, to be honest, suffering and hustling? Do you see it like that, or you're just like, I don't know, my mom's going to work, or did you know it was like the situation? Because sometimes when you're younger, like your brain's smart, it can play tricks on you. You know, my mom's just working right now, whatever. There's a lot of trauma because that's happening right now. Disassociate from it. We're just gonna go to school, do whatever. Or were you pretty present with that?
Actually, that's a very interesting question. I think it was a blend of, fortunately, I had the awareness to know that she was actually working to make ends meet. Well, one, because she would objectively mention it, but 2, like I would actually see that, like we would have the TV cut off because, you know, the bill couldn't be paid. and like certain things we couldn't get. Like I remember growing up, like everyone in my class would have pizza lunch, which was $5 at the time.
Oh my god, bro! Same thing.
Right?
I never got freaking pizza lunch. And one time, one person gave me like the crust. I was like, this is worse. You're giving me the crust, right?
It's like you gave me the worst possible thing.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want the crust. But here you go. I'll take it though.
But sure,
I'll take it. But 100%, exact same thing happened with you.
Yeah, right. So like again, you get it. So it was like I would see that, and I'm like, well, my mom doesn't hate me. She's not doing this for no reason.
Yeah.
And then it became this time where like once she saw that, like I was upset, but I was never like I wasn't like outwardly about it. It was just more of like I'm seeing everyone getting pizza lunch, and like I was just quieter than usual. When my teacher brought me, she's like, "Is everything okay?" I was like, "Yeah, it's just like weird. I just it would be cool if I had pizza too." And that's all I said. And then like she had a private meeting with my mom, which I didn't know about. And then like my mom would make sure I had pizza lunch after that. And she only when I was older, she was like, actually to make sure I budgeted that extra $5 just so you felt good. And like I felt like shit at the time because I'm like, I know you couldn't afford that, and I didn't even want that to be the case.
Yeah.
So it's like I understood that work was the means of getting all of the things. So I was never resenting her for working. But the interesting part about that was how the relationship would be when she wasn't working, because like now it's like you could see the tiredness in her eyes and the frustration of the life. And when I would want to be, hey, like, can we play, or can we do this, or can we do, and Andrew, like, I'm tired, or I can't do this. And then like that made me just feel like a burden. I'm like, oh, I'm just another puzzle. I'm another piece of this puzzle that's causing her frustration. So I would just try and isolate and be like, no, it's fine. Like, I'll just like do my own thing. So it's not like I didn't have the resentment for work. I understood that, but it was more of like, because of all that work, who she was on the end of when she wasn't working, that's what kind of played an interesting piece in me seeing the relationship between her and work.
No, that's fair. And then even like now, do you guys ever talk about it?
Yeah, only recently. Over the last couple of years, I tried to make my mom have a deeper level of emotional intelligence because, again, like she didn't have anyone to teach her that. Neither did I, but I'm grateful enough that I now know about it. Therefore, I can help her as well.
Does she like have you pretty young?
She had me when she was 27, I believe.
Yeah. So my mom had me when she was like 17.
Okay.
And so it's like one of those things. It's like it's funny when you're older, when you get older, you start looking at your parents like adults opposed to parents.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting concept because there's going to be a time where like, I think about with like my daughter, like there's going to be a time where it's like, yeah, I'm her father, but she's going to look at me like a person too, like an adult. Right. And people are flawed. Right. And so it's like, the older I get, the more I realize, my mom did the best with what she could at that time. Like no person is really meant to be a parent at 17. Right. But you gather the pieces and you learn along the way. Right. Sometimes like I was reading something the other day, and it was like a lot of people who have kids young, their first kid grows up with him, and then the second kid gets raised.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just like you kind of go on that journey together. And it's funny because I don't know about you with your mom, but like, are you pretty close with your mom? Like sometimes when, like, for example, like if my mom's going through some hard shit, and I'm going through some hard shit, there's like no words. We kind of look at each other and we just like, hey, we got to buckle down because we know like we've been in the shit and get through it.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you have that same relationship with your mom?
Yeah. And it's also, again, it was a growing relationship. But it was always like innately there. Like I've always been a mama's boy. I fucking love my mom, like big driver for everything that I do.
Yeah.
But I think like where I really understood that, like, almost like, I feel like I've had the role of being the protector of my mom since I was a little kid. And what by little kid, I mean, when I was 4, when we were living in Melbourne, I remember I was walking downstairs once and she was in the living room and she was bawling her eyes out. She didn't know that I was physically there. And like, it was like ugly sobbing, like ugly crying. And then like I walked down and there's a song by Bob Marley called 3 Little Birds.
Yeah.
It's like, don't worry about a thing, right? So I would always sing that chorus. I sang that chorus to her, and then she broke down even more, right? And then she was like hugging me tight, and she's like, you know what, you're right, everything will be all right. And then like that interaction has not been spoken about until like a few years ago, where she was like, every time shit would hit the fan, I would always remember you singing that song to me, right? And like, even from that moment, I was always like, I know my mom is going through some shit, and like, I want to make sure that she's okay. because I would see her going through the shit, right? But like I would say in like me like childhood, it was a lot of like, again, she was working, but even when she wasn't working, we would still kind of have a conversation. So it wasn't strong then. Adolescence, it was me being a little bit of a rebel. So not, right?
I get rebel without a cause.
Exactly, right? I'm fighting for something. I don't know what I'm fighting for, but I just want to fight, right?
100%.
So it was that. And then like early adulthood started to get a little better. And then, and I can talk on this at a separate time, but there's a part in my life where I hit like a bad rock bottom where like I lost almost everything. And in that moment, like my mom, like literally looked me in my eyes and said she doesn't believe in me or the dreams that I have. And like that really tarnished the relationship because like everything that I've done in my life was to make sure you're okay. And for you to now look at me and tell me you don't believe in me, that fucked me up. Right. So it took a few years of me just understanding that she's a human. She's not just my mom. And then, you know, we rekindled that. And now it's become a lot of like I no longer live with my mom, but when I did, like, it would be like, I would check in on her every evening. I'd be, Mom, like, how are you? And she was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, no, Mom, like, I actually want to understand how you feel. And she was very like, whoa, like no one's checked in on her like that before. And then like that would become like a routine thing. And then we would start talking and then she would open up a lot more. And then we would get really deep into things where she would actually open up about how she grew up and like what she was actually going through when we were kids. And then like me just being an ear. And then she was like, she's never felt heard that way. And then it felt like a deeper duty to just make sure that I'm there for her no matter what. And even though she is my mom, she's still human with flaws, but that doesn't mean that I can fault her for anything that she's done, you know? So it's like everything that I learned being a human, being a man, being mature, being emotionally intelligent, all of those things, like I want to take that and distill that onto her so she can feel provided, cared, and protected, even though she is my mom. So now it's really strong. We call all the time and she's like super happy for all the things I'm doing. She's like, Andrew, I can't wait until we're flying around and like seeing the world and, you know, all these things. She's like, I'm so happy for you. Every time that I meet someone new, I show them your Instagram so I can show them the cool stuff that my son is. She's like, I feel like you're a celebrity. I'm a celebrity mom. I'm like, not yet, but I get what you mean. You know?
That's awesome. It's good to have that like relationship to grow like that with when you guys been through so much.
Yeah.
So with your dad, how's that shaped you? Because I have a very strong opinion that, you know, like a father's sins really do get passed down to the son. Is the son's responsibility to try to fix that, right? And try to kind of piece it together so that the next child can have a little less trauma, a little less sin, right? 'Cause they talk about generational trauma and stuff like that, right? And it goes down and down. So perfect example is like my father is very aggressive, very angry, like stepped on people's throats, like the worst of the worst. And it's like I always felt like this responsibility to listen to people, to really understand people, to be empathetic, to protect. So and I think the main thing, a big thing too, is like I wanted to ask you too for your role models. You didn't have any?
No, like the best way I could explain it is like I would see people doing things and be like, these are pockets of things I would like to have, but it was never like, okay, this is someone that I would want to healthily emulate.
Gotcha.
Right? So like, for example, with my mom, like I could argue now that she was my role model at the time because of like, she was working and sacrificing anything to make sure her family was taken care of. Like that is a very noble thing to do, right? She didn't have to, but she did. But if you're talking about like, this is like the place that I want to be at in my life and I want to follow this path, like, no, there was nothing like that existed.
So for me, it was a lot of escapism for me when I was young was comic books. So like, you know, Superman, all these guys. So like, it actually, it's funny. It went to, I went to therapy years ago to just understand myself more. And my therapist was like, yeah, like, Norm, you have a superhero complex, which is very, very possible to have because like you can't help and save everyone. Right. And that's one of the biggest, and to this day, it's like a hard thing for me to understand because it's like, I think I can, but it's like, that's not life.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for telling me, but
I could do it. Do you need help? Let me know.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely one of those, I used to be more, I'm a little bit better now, but I definitely used to be one of those people where I was like, I'm happy being unhappy if it makes you happy.
100%.
Right. And it wasn't like that I'm just a very agreeable person. And I think I just saw so much pain, so much trauma, so much sadness, like that it's just like, I just don't want the people around me to fucking feel like that. I just don't. And I understand it's part of life, and it grew me, it grew my mother, it grows people, but I still don't fucking want you to have that, right? So that's my personal struggle with that. But to go back to what I said before, so how's your father being it more in and out or more out in your life?
Like mainly out.
I mean, how's that shaped you? Do you feel like you have this responsibility as a man or as a son to like be there towards your family, to your friends?
1000%. Yeah. Like,
and do you think that that's like actually like detrimental, like takes you back a little too much, like you're too hard on yourself?
I mean, I feel like logically or objectively, maybe I am being too hard on myself, but like emotionally, I'm like, no, like this is egotistic, is like, this is what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just like mini context on my father is, he was with my mom until I was like 4 or 5 maybe. And like the only memories that I had of him when I was that age was like, he was always like, not always, mainly laying down on the couch. And I would just think that he was sick, right? And if he wasn't sick, then he was like yelling at us or hitting us or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like only until like several years later, I was talking to my mom about something. I was like, yeah, like my dad was always like sick. He was like, he wasn't sick. He was hungover because he was drinking all the time. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Holy fuck. And like,
never got sick.
Yeah. And like, I knew that he drank, but I'd never put 2 and 2 together. But anyway, so he would barely be there. And I remember like when I was like 8 or 9, I asked for like a brush, like a hairbrush for my birthday. And he's like, no, you don't need that. Like, it was just never, he would just kind of come just once a month for, you know, right? And like very minimally engaged. And then I remember when I was like in grade 7, we had this like exercise where it was like, who do you want to be when you're older? Right. And I don't know why till this day, but like everyone's a firefighter, blah, blah. I was like, an amazing.
It's always firefighter.
It's always a firefighter, yeah.
Not an astronaut no more. Nobody wants to be an astronaut.
No one. It's like firefighter, cop, vet, you know, doctor. And mine was an amazing father.
Yeah.
And like at that time, like I didn't even think about a career. It's more like I always wished that I did have an ideal male role model, ideally a father, to like, dad, like this is what I'm going through. Like, what do I do as a man? Because like my older brothers, they were not ideal role models, right? So it was like that was one thing that always drove me in my life. Is like I just want to make sure I'm never like him. So what do I need to do to make sure that doesn't happen, right? And then when I was 17, in an act of rebellion, I pierced my ear, right? So I got an earring, and like so both my parents are like country Jamaicans, and what I mean by that, like it's like a niche, right? It's like they are very like traditional, cultural, like there's no way to change them. My mom now is way more malleable, but it's like what they know is what they know, and anything beyond that is crazy, right? So in that culture, like a man getting his piercing, doesn't matter if it's left, right, both. It's like you are, for better or worse, like you are either gay or there's something wrong with you, right? Yeah. So I got my ear pierced because I'm like, I know I'm not gay. I know I'm not, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, right? And I'm like, I just want to show him that like I don't give a fuck, right? And I got it pierced, and I was happy. I loved it. And then it was me and my brother, and we went into my dad's car, and like he's on the driver's seat, I'm in the passenger seat. My left ear is pierced, so the first thing he's gonna see is the earring. And I told my brother, I'm like, yo, let me go in the passenger seat. Yeah. He's like, yo, are you good? I'm like, no, I want to go in the passenger seat, right? Yeah. So I go in the passenger seat, and then like I'm just staring straight because he has to see the earring. I'm just like, hi, Dad. I'm not looking at him, and he's like, hi, Andrew. No words, barely saying anything. And then like we were in the car for like 5 minutes, almost no words. He's like, you got your ear pierced? I'm like, yeah, I did. You like it? And then he doesn't say anything. And he's like, yeah, I got to head out. And then he leaves. And then he calls me a couple hours later, like loses his shit. He's like, why the fuck would you do something like that? Like, I don't think you understand what you're doing or what you're signing up for. If I knew that I would have a son that would do something like this, I wouldn't even want to have a kid to begin with. Right. And he's going. And I stopped. I'm like, Dad, just 1 second. Are you saying that I'm not going to amount to anything because there's a rock in my ear? He's like, yeah, but I'm like, mark my words, I promise you with everything that I love in this world, you will regret every word of this conversation. And when I make it to where I'm going to make it, don't ask me for shit because I'll always have a rock in my ear.
Mm-hmm.
And I hung up the phone, right? And I was like, I was just like hot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my mom like overheard the conversation. She's like, "No, you got to be reasonable with him." I'm like, be reasonable for what? He literally said he does not want his son.
Yeah, he got to be reasonable.
Like, yeah, I'm like, no, like, don't. I got mad, like, I got mad at my mom, and I was like, you need to understand, like, you can't keep rationalizing for people who damage people.
Sure.
Right? It's like there are things that happen in your life that you kept rationalizing and put you in positions. Now I'm just like, I can't control myself. I'm hot as fuck. And then my oldest brother is like, "Yo, bro, like, relax." I'm like, "Yo, like, guys, just stop fucking telling me to relax." Like, I've been so level-headed, and now I do something, and now I'm looked at this way. Like, fuck everything, right? And I just like head down. I just made sure that, again, anything I did in my life, like, it was always in this lens of like, I'm gonna prove everyone wrong, and I don't give a fuck. I don't need anyone to clap for me. I don't want you to clap for me. It gives me more energy. And like, that was me. And it was like 2 years later, my dad calls me apologizing, right? And at this time, I'm a little bit more emotionally mature. And then I was like, "Thank you for apologizing, but again, it still stands. Like, however you perceive me is not going to matter. Like, I'm still going to amount to a lot, right? And I don't need your validation for anything. So thank you for the apology. I respect that, and that's a sign of maturity. But like, don't make that think that that is something that's going to make me feel better in my life, right?" And several years later, it was a time where I didn't even have a conversation with my dad for like 5-6 years. And I was talking to my cousin about it. And looking back at it, it was actually kind of sad where he's like, "Oh, when was the last time you talked to your dad?" I was like, "Oh, it's been like 5-6 years." And I was just thinking like jokingly. And I'm like, "That's my father." And then I had this huge like mental battle with myself of like, do I forgive the person who crafted the trauma in my family? Or do I keep him where he's at for him to understand that he was the person that created the trauma in my family? Right? It's like, what do I choose? Because everyone keeps forgiving him and he keeps enabling this trauma. But is it that he just needs someone to help him understand life? And it was so hard for me to think about it. I was like, no, like, fuck that. Like, he said all these things and he means that he stands when he's not going to change. But I'm like, humans are flawed, blah, blah. And then it came to this point where I was like, I'm just going to go and sit down and talk to him.
Yeah.
And then I did. And it was very like, I was like panicking. Because again, it's like country Jamaican. He's like a jack guy. Like he's, he's, anyway. So, I was like, I just feel like I need to do this for myself more than anything else. Yeah. Right. So I had a conversation with him. I'm like, "Dad, I want to have this conversation to help you understand like how much you've impacted my life, not in a good way." And I was explaining everything. And he literally was speechless. Like, he just didn't say anything. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that any of that happened." Like, that was the first time I like seen him like accept something that he's really done. And like, at that moment, I was like, I think he understands the impact of what he's done. I think this conversation was healthy. Whatever transpires beyond this, that's it, right? And then it became this time where like every couple months, then he would call me and just like check in on me. And he's like, "You know what? Like, so proud of you for everything that you're doing." And like, now he's trying to give me the flowers, and I was always still trying to push it away. And then when I just moved to my new place last year, he called me, and like just the words he said was almost like it wasn't him, but I knew it was. He's like, "Seeing you grow up into the man that you are with how you were raised fills my heart with so much joy." And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, that really hit me,
So would you say that like, I know people are going to ask me, where are you guys right now?
So where we're at now is like, we'll have like our, like a monthly-ish call where, I check in on him, make sure he's okay. He checks in on me. And like, it's just funny because now he's like, he understands that I actually am a grown man, and like, and not in an egotistical way, but it's like, I am beyond him. Mm-hmm. So it's like, he'll try to like give me like some fatherly advice, and he always stops himself. Like, he'd be like, "Yeah, like, for example, there's just one thing that he always says. He's like, protect your big head before you protect your little head."
Yeah. Right? I can imagine what,
yeah, right? And then he's like, and every time he gives these like things, he's like, "But you're a grown man and you do all this stuff. I don't even need to be telling you these things. I don't need to tell you to be safe. Like, I know you got it, but I just feel like as a dad, I should say something. Yeah. And he has this like conflict. I'm like, and now again, like now we're at that space. I'm like, Dad, it just feels good to know that you care and you're trying to say what you can. I'm like, whether you believe that I know what you're saying or not, like say it. Like be a dad if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, you're okay with that.
Exactly.
You take it as it is.
Exactly. And like, so now it's like, it's a good relationship. I wouldn't say it's like amazing, but
it's just a
like,
process.
Exactly.
Day by day, month by month kind of situation, but it seems like it's like tremendously
1,000%
better than it was.
Yeah. So, way better.
Is that weird for your mom to know that you guys are cool?
No, my mom loves that. Like the interesting thing, and I say interesting because it's like they were like, again, they separated, whatever. My mom was never the type of mom to be like, fuck your dad, like blah blah. Like
my mom was the exact same. Like she never talked shit about my dad. And I was like so confused. I'm like, I can't fucking see him. They're like, you cry around him, but you don't want to say shit about him. I'm like, is he bad or not?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Is he a villain or not?
Yes. Like, I want to know. Do I put on the cape? What am I doing? So same thing, right? So she's always like, you know what? Like as much as the history we've had, like he is your father at the end of the day, and he's a flawed man, but like that's still your dad. So I'll never talk bad about him. I just want to make sure you guys are happy. So like when we started improving our relationship, she loved it. Like she always like, oh, when was the last time you talked to your dad? So no, she's an amazing human, and she's happy that we can connect how we do now.
Okay, that's good. Wanted to ask. Okay, so talk to me about your training. What does it look like for you?
Training in terms of
like physical training.
Yeah. So I'm quite active. So I'm in the gym minimum 4 times a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday's rest day, Thursday, Friday I'm in, and then 2 times a week now is when I do my my Muay Thai. So I just started adding jiu-jitsu into that mix as well. Yeah.
It's fun being choked up by grown men.
Oh my God. It's the most humbling thing ever.
Great.
Yeah.
You know what's so fun? So I was traded. So I'm very, very lucky where like a lot of my friends or people that I know are high level JIT players, black belts, or like high up like kickboxing, Muay Thai or something like that. So I trained with some real freaking sharks, okay? And it was Valentine's Day, and I was rolling with one of my buddies, and it was 1-on-1, and he was like, we were rolling and we were sparring, and in my head I'm like, this is not what I want to fucking do. On Valentine's Day, being choked out by a grown-ass man.
It's just our version of intimacy?
Yeah, and then I remember, exactly. We were rolling up here in the little dojo we have, and then as you saw in the gym, we have like an open space to see down into the open floor. And we were rolling, and I was at the bottom trying to brace up and everything like that, and I see one of the the freelance trainers with the clients, and I just turned it on. I'm like, happy Valentine's Day. And it just like turned over, and he's like, shouldn't have done that. And I was like, oh man, this is the worst, but it's the best.
It's the greatest thing.
Yeah.
Like it's a great way to keep your ego in check. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
even I was supposed to have a training session last Friday, and my business partner was like, "Oh, I thought you were supposed to have it got canceled." And then I was like, "Oh," she's like, "I thought you're supposed to have jits right now," and I was like, "Honestly, it's fine that it canceled. I didn't feel like getting." I don't
want to have to fight for my life right now.
Yeah, and it's funny. Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I love kickboxing, Muay Thai, and boxing. I love that more. And to me, that's that's more. How to explain it? Natural to me.
Yeah.
Right? I've wrestled and stuff like that, not at a high level, just in high school and stuff like that. But stand up is pretty natural to me. You know?
Yeah.
So so that's fine. And a lot of times in stand up, as you know, like sometimes you got to take one to give one, which I'm totally cool with. Jits, you can't do that.
Exactly.
You make a mistake, they capitalize.
You're done.
Mate, you're done.
Yeah.
Whoa, bro. Come on. It's
a different game down there.
Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So you're was that a big have you always kind of trained that style in the sense of like your weight training and all that stuff, or you change up what you do every year?
I don't change up what I do every year, but I have changed up what I've done. So like it was mainly like for most of my life, well, a good portion of my life was just like athletics. So like football and rugby were my main things. And then naturally when you do that, you're just strength training. So once I stopped playing football and rugby because I value my brain health, it's just
I know.
I kind of want to like learn how to think still.
Yeah, 100%.
So it was just mainly strength training from there. And then I think it was maybe like 2 years ago where I was like, I just love the idea of fighting and like striking and like I'm a very energetic guy, and like the gym doesn't get all of that out of me.
Yeah,
Right?
I think too, like with, I mean, this may be a little bit of a cop out, but with like stuff that would like we've been through it, whether like at the end of the day, if we're being honest, if you've been physically abused, um, there always there's always one or two. Either you're super like everything's inside and you're kind of shy, right? Or you have all this aggression and you wanna let it out. And it's beautiful to let that out on something that's safe, like a safe environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and also learn some skills. I do truly believe that I think learning self-defense, martial arts, it's something that everybody should know and learn, but everybody should avoid fights in general.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I always say, like with my kids, like when they're older, if my son or my daughters, like they come home and they're like, yeah, there was a fight, but I talked to them, we bought a couple of shots, we're good. I'll be way more proud of that
100%.
than they said, yeah, I slip, and the cross. I mean, a little low key part of me was like,
let's go.
but I'd be like, come on, we can't fight now.
Yeah.
It's not smart, because fighting now, in my personal opinion, it's like way different than it used to be, because people carry knives, people have guns. Also, my biggest fear when I was younger, whenever I got into like fights, whatever, you hit somebody, they fall backwards on the sidewalk, and they're in a coma, or God forbid they pass. That's on you, and that's like, even if like the parents forgive you, that's on your soul.
Yeah,
that's on your soul. Like too many bad things can happen in a fight.
Yeah.
So like, always talk them down. Hey, bro, let me just buy you a couple shots. Okay, a little bit on the visa. Let's get a couple shots. Let's not fight here.
Yeah.
That being said, like sometimes I want to get into fights, but that's where like the peace in me was like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's how I feel about that.
No, strongly agree.
Yeah.
Strongly
Okay.
agree.
Cool. I wanted to ask you: would you call yourself an optimist?
That's a good question too. Like I feel like I'm like an optimal realist more now. Like before I was like shameful optimist. And the reason why it's like I don't feel like I can like openly categorize myself in the box of optimism is because like life doesn't work that way. Like there is shit that you have to deal with. There's hardship, and like sure, you can argue that it's like, even though hardship is bad, the optimistic lens of it is that it's going to help you in some sort of way, shape, or form. But I do find that staying in the pocket of optimism does potentially blind you from the real aspects of what can happen in life.
Yeah.
So I like to say like I'm like an optimal realist, where I try to, I'm mainly optimistic, but I do try to level myself out with like, okay, so what are the parameters of this thing? How could this go wrong? Like I still open my mind up to it all as well. So I don't think I could just like call myself like a blank stated optimist.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Where's the line between realists and pessimists? Because I find a lot of people I know who are pessimistic call themselves realists.
Curiosity. I think that is the line itself, because like with a pessimist, a random example, right? Like let's say I was like, oh, like do some breath work. They're like, yeah, that's like stupid. Like, no, that's not going to work. That doesn't change anything. Like they lack the curiosity to be like, even though I may disagree with this, what is this person saying? Right? So I think really the line is curiosity. Yeah.
That's fair. That being said, how'd you get into breathwork?
Curiosity.
Hey!
Yeah, literally. So it started where I had my advertising agency for the last 6 years now.
Okay.
And like through that, I've always been a nerd. Like I've always loved to understand like the body, the brain, and how it can benefit the life, etc. And as I started scaling the agency, as you may know with business, like stress starts to take life, and then it's almost like that becomes your preset, and you're like, yeah, I'll like focus on everything else like when the time comes, but the time never comes. So I started like dealing with like really bad burnout, like to the point that like I'd literally be like on the ground immobile because my body's just so taxed from stress, and I just didn't know how to process things. I couldn't think efficiently. It was like I was essentially capping the business because I wasn't filling myself up properly. So I kind of leaned back more into like, okay, well, I don't believe that being a high performer is objectively a bad thing, right? Because like high performers, these are the people that move the needle in society, whether it's innovation, whether it's productivity, right? It's like these people are necessary. Does everyone need to be one? No. right? That's another argument. But it's like, okay, if you are a high performer, how can you sustain your shelf life without killing yourself or other people in the process?
Mm-hmm.
That curiosity led me to modalities of like, okay, well, obviously I've always been in nutrition, but it's like, what else is there, right? So meditation started to come a part of the stack. The hot and cold came a part of the stack. And then I was like, there's this breathwork thing. What is that? It's super interesting. So at first I went to a breathwork seminar because I don't know, for some reason, I wasn't reading the title. I just thought it was like, you're going to learn how to breathe for all of these different things. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it was a somatic release breathwork, right? Which I'm not saying is good or bad. It's like,
it's just different.
Yeah, I was like, at one point, it was like an hour in, and like, I'm like hallucinating and I'm sober. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Yeah, why am I talking to my ancestors?
Well, they even say that you can access a DMT through breath work.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So I had no understanding that breath could even do anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was more along the lines of like, whoa, what the fuck was that? Mm-hmm. And then that led the curiosity of like, okay, well, if breath could do that, what else can it do? Mm-hmm. So we started reading a lot of books, listening to a lot of podcasts, reading a lot of clinical papers, as the nerd as I am. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh, wait, this can also improve athletic performance. So then I got down the lines of like learning about intermittent hypoxic training. Like, how can you learn breath work to improve your VO2 max? How can you learn to improve your cardio health, etc.? So like that was the whole situation of like me having bad asthma. So I'm like, well, let me be the guinea pig. Let me build an anecdotal test of myself and see if this translates. So I was never able to run longer than 2 kilometers without like my lungs feeling like shit. Mm-hmm. So I started doing breath training for that performance side for about like 6 to 8 weeks, I'd say. And then that brought me from my first 2 kilometers to 5 kilometers. And the 5K still felt great. And I was like, this is like a whole other like realm of my life. And then I went from 5K to 10. And then a year after that, I ran my first half marathon without stopping. And I was like, yo, this breath shit is no joke.
Yeah.
Right. Real. Yeah. And then that brought me down a huge rabbit hole. And now I'm having conversations with doctors and all these things and figure out, okay, like, let's actually sit down and break this down. Okay, obviously the breath is something that can objectively change things.
Yeah.
What are the ways you can leverage breath work for all of these things? So whether it is for stress, whether it's for focus, for energy, for athletic performance, for whatever, is there a way to find an ideal protocol of breathing for these things? And then that was like, yeah, I want to start doing this a lot more and like teaching and facilitating.
Yeah, I see that you like go to boxing classes and you go to like schools and stuff like that. That's pretty sweet, man.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I saw also you were talking a little bit about biochemical energy.
Yes.
Explain.
Yeah. So, fuck, that was a good question too. Yeah. These are heat. Okay. So there's two idea, like if we're trying to oversimplify, it's like there's two types of energy in the human body. There's biochemical energy and there's psychological energy, right? So the issue between both of these energy systems is you should have both of them fueled. So I'll talk with psychological energy first because it's going to bring more importance to this one. So psychological energy is you watch a motivational video. You see Tony Robbins, rah, rah, rah. It's like, oh, I want to do that. I want to accomplish all these things in the world. Like life feels great.
That huge dopamine.
The huge dopamine hit. And then you close your laptop and be like, I hate everything in life. And I actually have no capacity to do this. And I hate everything. And now you're in a deeper pit, right? So psychological energy exists. It's almost like the quick fix kind of thing. And it gives you, a dopamine hack that makes you feel good. Whereas biochemical energy is actually the energy that's inside of your body to allow you to feel yourself to match what's happening psychologically, right? So whether we're talking nutrition, whether we're talking about metabolic health, whether we're talking about all of these things are what you use to help fuel your body to match the demands of your mind. So if you're not fueling yourself properly, if you're not exerting yourself properly, it's almost like an analogy that I like bringing up to a lot of people now is like, you're better off operating at 70% on an 80% battery than 100% on a 20% battery, right? So when you look at it that way, that's the importance of having both of these energy systems. You need the biochemical energy system to allow this vehicle, this car to drive. And then the psychological energy, that's almost like the GPS that's navigating, right? But if the car's not on, the GPS is not going to work. Mm-hmm. And even if somehow you can get the GPS to turn on, you still can't drive the car. So you need both of those systems in tandem to allow yourself to reach the places that you want.
So what are a good couple of like things for people to start understanding that more and implementing that in their life?
Yeah. I would say like some key ones. Well, number one is obviously nutrition, right? Like people say like if you are where you eat. So if you eat like shit, you're going to feel like shit. It's kind of obvious, right? Like what you eat literally creates the building blocks of who you are in this world, right? Like whether you're male, female, like protein is obviously important because that's what's it's used for almost every energetic process inside of your body. So you being deficient on protein allows your body get a little nerdy here. So there's this like energy crisis in our body, and what's happening is like literally like anything requires energy. But what happens in the body is, let's say you have a lot of inflammation, or you have a lot of stress, or you have a lot of these things. Your body has to take a budget of that energy to fight these things that are already taking energy away from you, right? So you have a deficit because of this inflammation and this, that, and then your body starts to now take an extra budget of that to fight all these things. So now you're at this subpar energy level where you're like, oh shit, I feel like shit. So if this is most people's preset now in today's society. So now when you feel yourself properly, your cells are like, oh, we have more energy to fight all these extra things. So nutrition's the key one. Movement's a key one, because that's what takes care of toxins, right? We have the lymph system, and the lymphatic system is by manual pumps, right? And people aren't manually, doing gouache on, lymphatic drainage. The best way to do it is just to move, right? Movement is what allows the body to naturally detoxify itself, naturally produce more energy. So I would say, again, nutrition, movement, and an interesting one is finding a sense of purpose, like actually finding something that you care about and you want to strive and move toward, because purpose allows you to have more energy, and it also allows you to rewire your brain to feel a lot better about life and the nuance of it. And mindfulness. So mindfulness can be meditation, can be breath work, but mindfulness and or meditation is literally just having a conscious awareness of being present. Like literally something as simple as me being like, my name is Andrew Daye, and like I am like physically in the studio room having a conversation with you. Like I am aware of that now. That's actually a meditation, right? It's just diverting your conscious awareness intentionally towards something. So it's not sitting down, cross your legs and saying, right? Right?
There's a little bit of a like a weird connotation that like you got to do this, go
exactly
yoga. So you know what I mean? Like it can be so many different things.
Yes,
so many different things.
Yeah, and like without going deeper onto that, and we can talk about that in a second. Those are like some of the key ones, and there's several. But yeah, I'd say nutrition, movement, finding a sense of purpose, and aligning your mind through some sort of mindfulness practice would be some key ones.
I find that, well, for me, like huge form of meditation for me is running. Right? It forces a lot of thoughts in my head, and then it forces me to separate everything and be present with my breath, my legs, my core, like that. And then martial arts, obviously.
Martial arts is great.
Makes you super present, in my opinion. Okay, so I read a little bit that you got rid of your asthma.
Yeah.
Like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
I told a lot of people, ask me, oh, you have a guest? I'm like, rid of his asthma. And they're
Let's talk about that.
What?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, tune in next week. So, like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I had really bad asthma growing up. Like, I was hospitalized twice for asthma attacks. I remember even, like, there was one time I was playing football in elementary school, and, like, I literally was just, like, this crippling, like, I could barely breathe, to the point that, like, I couldn't even ask for help. Like, I was literally just, like, there. And thank God, one of my best friends, Basir, shout out to you, he knew I had asthma, and he's like, yo, fuck, like, I know this is not good. So like him and one of my friends like brought me to the office, and then, I got sorted out. So I tried to get rid of my asthma at a very young age by actually mitigating my mucus production. So as a young kid, I would actually not drink juice or pop, right? Because that would create more mucus, and that's just going to cause more inflammational impacts in your lungs. So that helped, but it wasn't enough. I would still, again, have that gassed feeling. So breath work was one of the key things that like really started to push it away. So there's a particular practice called, or there's several, breath retention and or intermittent hypoxic training. So it's pretty much holding your breath on empty. And when you hold your breath on empty for longer periods of time, I love being able to have a way to get nerdy. So anyway,
let's go.
So when you hold your breath on empty, first and foremost, when people hear about breathing, we just hear about oxygen, carbon dioxide. Oxygen's good, carbon dioxide's bad. But it's just like life. There's nuance to that too, right? So you need a certain amount of carbon dioxide inside of your body in order for oxygen to do its job. So let's say this is the red blood cell. This is oxygen, right? Like this is what we learn in school. It's like, oh, red blood cell, oxygen, now you have oxygen throughout your body. But the piece that people don't speak a lot about is the fact that you need a certain balance of carbon dioxide inside of your cells for that oxygen to dislodge from the red blood cell, right? So let's say, as most people in this world overbreathe, whether you're breathing through your mouth or you're just constantly breathing a lot, what happens is you start to lose your carbon dioxide tolerance, which means you're breathing out more carbon dioxide than your body needs. So you're having more oxygen in your body, but there's not enough oxygen dislodging from the red blood cell to actually go to your muscles, to go to your nerves, and to go to anything else. So when you do breath retention, so holding your breath on empty, what happens is you're training your body into the stressed state. It's almost like resistance training. The more time under tension, you grow your muscles. So the more time under this tension, what happens is the carbon dioxide, your body's like, oh, I'm understanding how to stay in the state of it. There's more dislodging of the oxygen, and now your body gets more oxygenated. So you can do this over time. Your body becomes more efficient per breath breathing in. So like, let's say I've been doing breath retention for 10 years and you've never done it. My one inhale versus your one inhale, I get more oxygen throughout my body than you would, right? So when you're doing that, your lungs start to operate a lot better. They pump a lot better. They flow a lot easier. So now you're creating this like healthy state of oxygenation.
More efficient too.
Exactly, right? It's like we learn how to train all of these muscles, but we have breathing muscles. Why are we not training that? We do it 25,000 times a day, even if we're being physically active or not. So why are we not putting attention to that, right? So that's that's the main thing that I would do for myself that actually allowed that asthma to go away. So it's breath retention and then constantly training that with physical activity. So whether I was doing Muay Thai or whether I was running, this is what's called intermittent hypoxic training now. So that holding on empty is just breath retention. Intermittent hypoxic training literally just means intermittent, so periodically. Hypoxic, low oxygen training. You're treating yourself in pockets of time to operate with low oxygen. So now what you do is you have that breath retention while doing physical activity. So let's say I'm going on a run, 5K run as an example. Periodically throughout that run, I'll run and hold my breath on empty and run as far as I can until I can't. And then like now, like it's not fun. It hurts, right? What happens again, you're actually speeding up your carbon dioxide tolerance. And then you just do a recovery breath. So 2 inhales through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And then your body starts to reuptake the oxygen again. And then that's what's training your body to learn how to continuously improve its cardiovascular health over time at a faster rate. And that improves your VO2 max, which now science is indicating that's one of the key things to see how long a human lives. Is how well your VO2 max, or the level of your VO2 max.
That's crazy. So what's a good way, like, for people to, like, is there an app? Like, what's a good way for people to kind of get into breathwork then?
Yes, several.
But there are like sources, but the easiest one.
Exactly. So if anyone's listening to this and doesn't listen to anything, the one thing I would strongly recommend every human on earth to remember right now is a cyclic sigh. Okay, a cyclic sigh, and I'll demonstrate it all. It's 2 inhales through the nose, exhale through the mouth. So literally it looks like this. In a cycle. So you do that as many times, ideally 3 to 5 minutes. So what you're doing there, first inhaling is obviously bringing oxygen, but the second inhale is the most important part, because when you take that inhale, the second inhale, the bottom third of your lungs holds most of your alveoli. Those are like those little sacs that bring oxygen from the air into your bloodstream. So when you take that second sharp inhale, it actually inflates the alveoli, so you get more oxygen exchange happening in that second breath. And then when you have that exhale that goes slowly up through the mouth, you're down regulating the nervous system and you're allowing the oxygenation to flow throughout the body. Now, the reason why I say that's the one thing people should remember is because that has now been scientifically validated to be the fastest way to reduce cortisol, to reduce stress, to improve stress management and improve sleep, not just in the moment, but for up to 24 hours. So if you do that in a 5-minute window, it's better than any recorded meditation, any recorded standard stress management protocol, or any other breathwork practice. So the reason why I say that's the most important one is because most humans are stressed, right? And it's the easiest way to just think of something to do. I don't need to physically be anywhere, right? I just take some cyclic sighs, I'm good. And the second part about that, that's also an act of mindfulness and meditation, because I have to be consciously aware of these 2 breaths, consciously aware of the exhale. So that's one super easy practice that I strongly recommend for everyone. A cyclic sigh.
All right. Sigh. I like it. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit before, but we'll bring it back. So you said about 6-ish years ago, I think I read, you were at the lowest in all aspects of your life.
Yes, sir.
Okay? So explain, like, what happened with whatever you feel comfortable with, and then also, how did you pick yourself up?
Yeah, so I think at the time now, I think it was probably like 7, 8 years ago. But yeah, so to make this part short, to get into the actual like meat of it, is I was in university studying health sciences, and which is fuck. That's also an interesting story. But anyway, I dropped out second year, going into third year to join a sales company, and I was in that sales company for about 2 years, and by I think around the second year mark, we switched the campaign of what we're selling. So I used to sell debit machines, right? And it was door to door, so like 100% commission, door to door. So like I don't make money unless I make a sale. And
Eat what you kill.
exactly, right? And it's like everyone hates a salesperson, but everyone hates a door to door payment processing salesperson even more.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah, you were like, oh, I had like 5 of them yesterday.
Yeah. Well, when somebody comes to the door, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, one of these guys.
I always say in the beginning, I'm like, brother, I respect the hustle, but like, I gotta put my daughter down. Like,
yeah. That was literally me, right? So A, we switched the campaign of what we were selling, and then B, at that moment, I unfortunately or fortunately realized that I'm a very passion-driven human, meaning I actually have to give a fuck about what I'm doing in order for me to do it.
Yeah, and do it well.
Yeah. So at the time, I was one of the top salespeople in Canada. So I was getting flown out to BC to teach people how to sell. Like it was good, right? And then it got to a point where like I actually stopped giving a fuck because I'm like, I'm saving someone $30 to $50 a month. They don't care, and I most certainly don't care. Sure, I'm making money, but there's a trillion ways to make money. I don't like this way. And then like my sales legitimately just plummeted. And at that same time, I wasn't good at money management. So it's like I'd make money and then it's gone. Because I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go make a couple grand tomorrow anyway, right? So anyway, better money management, switch the campaign, making no money. And then at that time, my car broke down. And that was literally how I'd commute from, at the time I was living in Whitby. So from Whitby to downtown Toronto to where I work. So it's like, I could get on the train, but that's like an extra couple hours. And then like, I would drive from place to place. So like, I was like literally capped. So I'd like borrow my brother's car. Anyway, so I lost my car. And then at that time, I lost all of the money in my bank account because I spent it all. And then I had negative $133 in my checking account. Negative 133 in my checking account, overdraft, right? And my credit cards were maxed out. I had to sell my stock portfolio, and then I lost all that. So like I literally had negative $133 to my name, right? And then at the time, I was going through it with my girlfriend, and like as I'm older and mature now, I realized this was directly a me thing in the sense of like, I felt very insecure that I couldn't provide for her, right?
Yeah, especially with all the stuff you've been through, you feel like a responsibility as a man.
Exactly. And she lived like an hour away, and like I couldn't afford gas to go see her. I'd have to borrow money from someone to go and see her. And I just felt like shit. And then like I would always make an excuse of like, oh, like this relationship's not working, blah, blah. And like, again, there were things that weren't, but like, I didn't feel like I wanted to fight because I couldn't, even if like we made things work, I still couldn't afford to see her. So I broke up with my girlfriend at the time. So at the time, I lost my car, lost my girlfriend, lost all my money. I had nothing. And then I transparently was literally just like bawling my eyes out because I'm like, yo, like life fucking sucks, right? Like life is shitty. And this was the time where I think it was a weekend, Saturday maybe, and like I was in my room fucking crying, trying to play music to like make sure my mom, you know, and
I feel like men do two things: they either play music and like cry, or they go in the shower and cry in the shower. I can hear shit right now.
Exactly.
Cry like a grown man.
I'm gonna cry to noise.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, it's hilarious. My route was crying with music. And then I think I had my mom's charger in my room or something. So she's coming in to get the charger. And then she saw me crying, and I was like, fuck, right?
You can't cover this up.
So at the time, she knew something was wrong because I was like not really present as I used to be. And then like, let's say, for example, like I was sitting down in my bed where you are, she walked near me and like looking beyond me. She's like, God, where's my son? I don't know who this person in front of me is anymore. I don't believe in his dreams. I don't believe in his vision. I don't believe in anything that he has. Like, please help him find a way because I can't help him and I don't think he can help himself either. Like, God, please help this kid. And like, in the process of me already bawling my eyes because life sucks. The one person who I try to drive for is literally
like,
right? That was like the part of my life where I was like, as much as this sounds like a toxic thing to say, you are actually your last line of defense. Like you are the last person. And like, now life is great, and I still believe that. And I'm not saying that like you can't welcome in help, support, and love from other people, but you must fucking be able to do it for yourself.
100%.
Because if the people around you can't do it for you, you now have no floor. And that's where danger happens. So that was a time where that hit me, and I was like, I have reached the floor. Like, no one here cares. No one here gives a fuck. And I have nothing. I am useless right now. I can't provide or protect, not for others, but for myself. And I was like, this is some fucking bullshit. You know?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, so once you had those thoughts, that's when you picked yourself up. That's when you started pursuing like a little bit past that. Like, what was the first thing you did after that thought process?
Cried a bit longer. And then, like, felt like shit for a little more.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah. But hey,
you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
100%.
And then I think it was like a few days after that, I was downtown about to go and start selling. And then I wrote down, I still have this piece of paper, and it was like, the header was like, the day that I changed my wiring. And it was like, this is the last day that I'll ever allow anyone else to be the source of protection, providing whatever. This is the last day where I will allow myself or anyone else to lose their belief in me ever. Like, from this day onwards, I'm taking this upon myself to make sure I become who I need to be, who I deserve to be. And it's going to be me who gets it there. And I wrote that down, and I stared at that note for like 15 minutes after writing it. And then like 2 weeks after that, I started crushing it again in sales. And then I was like, even though I don't like this, I need to fucking do it.
Yeah.
So, right? Picked up. And then the long short after that is a couple months after that, I quit that job. And then that's when I started my marketing agency.
You brother.
Yeah.
So after that, so now, how do you handle pressure?
I love it. I love pressure. I genuinely love pressure. How I handle it.
Same. I always feel like pressure builds diamonds or bursts pipes.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm a diamond.
Yeah. Thank God I'm not no pipe.
Right? I'm a pipe. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think for me, it's a reframe. And I think that's just life itself. It's like, life is all a perceptual lens, and the lens you choose to look at life with is the lens of how you'll live life. Right. So for me, anytime I see any sort of pressure, any sort of challenge, etc., it's like, what new skill set do I get to test here, right? Or what new thing do I get to operate with? So it becomes like a game in a way. Like, this is the new boss challenge, right? Like, what weapon do I get to use on this boss? And like, I genuinely look at life that way. So now when I look at pressure, like the word isn't actually pressure. It's legitimately, it's like, how do I navigate this thing with this new skill? Everything is like a way to upskill, another way to sharpen the saw. So it's like, that's the reframe that I use, that like makes challenges and pressure fun. And like, it reduces pressure, because if you look at it that way, you're actually equipping yourself with the tools to manage pressure.
Yeah.
So then you become proactive, and the things that usually cause pressure won't happen because you're building the tool. But then reactively, if it does happen, you have the tool set to know what to use.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I also find that like I'm the type of person where like the harder the battle, the harder I fight. So I need something. I need someone nipping at my heels. I need like you tell me like, hey, you gotta run 10K and this. I'm like, okay, I gotta do it. If you give me too lax of I need battlegrounds.
Yeah. You need some demons in there.
Yeah. Don't get me started on those demons, bro. Okay. So obviously we talked a little bit about martial arts, but like I always find that when people do martial arts and really, really let it take over them, it gives them a gift back. Right? For me, it's more peace with myself. With me, it's more like as we talk about demons. To me, it's more like not really. So I always found martial arts. So the way I've always thought about it in my head is like my demons are like in like a cell block, and every time I do martial arts or I train really hard, I'm cleaning the locks and making sure that they're on tight. And I look at the demons and say, hello, I acknowledge you, but goodbye. Right? Yeah. So that's the gift that I find that martial arts gives me.
Yeah.
What do you think it's given you?
Interesting question. I think, honestly, the word is peace. And peace in two ways, like internally and externally. Like, the internal peace is you, again, being able to like transmute that energy, that anger, that whatever in a healthy, controlled way, the controlled chaos. It helps with discipline, and me personally, like I love the skillfulness of it, right? It's like, how can I like move my feet to the left to like get on that outer leg to like really make sure that 2 hits harder. And like thinking about it in that tactical way also creates a deeper level of control to the chaos itself. Like you're not just swinging, right? Like the point of a martial arts for me is learning how to bring like this fine tune. It's like, let's say the sun is here and this is all the energy. Like martial arts is like taking that magnifying glass and pointing it somewhere, right? And like that's on the internal side. And then the external side, it's like, you're not really worried because, you know, things happen in the world. Like you're good. You're good, you know?
It's true. Like a lot of the times people don't know what to do in situations because they've never been in it. I'm not saying people should be in it, but at least when you train and you're doing drills or like sparring or whatever the case may be, it's not foreign. Because sometimes a lot of people, when something's so foreign, they shell up. Yeah, right? But you know, okay, I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to see what the person does. Like you control the environment a little bit better. Or you just like, hey, I'm walking away from this. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so the last 2 questions we always ask our guests is, what does alpha mean to you? And describe yourself in 1 word.
I mean, alpha to me, I'm thinking off the top of my head, is just a leader who, A, is not afraid to enter the battleground, but also understands how to navigate the battleground and how to help other people navigate the battleground. So I think a lot of times in today's world, the tainted version of alpha is like, I'm the dominant man and I'm just going to fucking overpower everyone. And like, that's a very, I don't want to use the word immature, but it's a very like youthful way of understanding the true definition of alpha.
I find it very Neanderthal.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm like, we're past that.
Yeah. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, we're past that.
Yeah. So for me, it's it's the poise to stand there and understand your power and know when and how to use it, but also to be able to do that within people around you too. Like that's the true alpha. Like you are the thermostat, but like the thermostat that can bring it hot if you need to, or bring it cold if you need to. It's like, you know, within yourself and the people around you. That's alpha.
And describe yourself in 1 word.
Damn. Wow. I think curious.
Curious?
Yeah. I think that's the best way to sum up who I am.
Curious.
Curious.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a curious cat.
Well, I appreciate you being on.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like we could talk for forever.
Yeah.
But so where can they find you? Plug whatever you want, like social media. What's the next breathwork class you're doing?
Yeah.
How can they find you?
Yes, sir. My social medias Andrew Daye with an E _.
We'll put it up.
Yeah, that's it. And in terms of what's next, actually a lot. My main thing right now is to actually help people understand the notion of functional breathwork and what the difference between like functional breathwork and like just breathwork itself is really a messaging game in the sense of like, when most people hear about breathwork, they think of somatic release breathwork where they have to like sit on the mat for a couple hours and like process their trauma and process their stress. Important, necessary, but the message I want to bring is like breath is like water. You don't use water just to shower. You use it to clean things. You use it to drink. You use it for all these things. That's what functional breathwork is. Like you can choose which function you want to modulate through breath. So if you just need 5 minutes to just like downregulate your stress, this is what you do. If you're in a boxing round, how do you upregulate really quickly? This is what you do. If you want to recover, this is what you do. So just like using breath as a toolkit and learning how and when to use it. So that's where a lot of workshops are going to start coming. So going to fitness facilities, going to wellness facilities, going to classrooms, so teaching kids young.
Especially with anxiety and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's really, I want to go on, I guess I call it like an education tour.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's what's coming up next. So I'm going to be at Humber College next month, Chicago, and then York University, and then a few other like fitness and wellness facilities in Toronto.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
All right, watch out for Andrew Daye.
Yes, sir.
All right, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching.
Appreciate it.
Love you guys. Bye.
Cheers.